Yeah. Why don't you ask me the question again?
Or a cup of tea.
Okay, was that the question about, oh, yeah, my earlier question was, do you know Ingo Swann and Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ from the SRI and the experiments, the CIA experiments?
Yes. Well, I never met Ingo Swann. I know of him, but I certainly was involved with Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff since 1973. Right. Yeah.
And that was with the remote viewing project?
Yes, in fact, yes. And the story details are in the book, How the Hippie Saved Physics, David Kaiser, my book, Destiny Matrix, and of a lot of books talk about it. Talk about it. Yeah, so the answer is yes, but the way I got involved is interesting. In any case, I was talking about my uncle.
Tell a story.
I was talking about my uncle Arthur in World War II. He was in combat in the South Pacific for over 4 years. He got the reputation in the Army. People would want to go out and patrol with him because he always kind of could sense where the Japanese snipers were in the jungle, up in the trees, and and like he survived, he's a survivor. So the Army, of course, is very interested in that. And then my grandfather, right after the war, this late 1940s, got a job. He had been in the Army, but he had an Army job as a chauffeur in the Army Quartermaster Corps down in the Garment District in Lower Manhattan. And I was a little kid, 10 years. I was living with my grandparents, and after school I used to go down to meet Gramps, at the down near 14th Street, the John Wanamaker building, I think it was. But it was an Army lab. It was the Quartermaster Corps lab, and I used to ride around, my grandfather driving with these Army current officers sitting in the back. I was a really bright kid, into rockets going to the moon, science fiction, all that stuff. And then obviously what it was they were, it was kind of like the X-Men. They were trying to see if we had psychic abilities.
Oh,
There
No
was,
way.
There was, yes, okay. And then when I got into high school, that project continued. I was part of a group of kids. It was sponsored by Columbia University Psychology Department, William Sheldon, and it was funded by one of the founders of Texas Instruments. It's a government project. So throughout my high school, I was part of this group of smart kids, and we were tested for psychic abilities. This is the 1950s. As a result of that, when I was like 16, 17 years old, I got a full scholarship to Cornell. Could have gone to MIT, Cornell, or University of Chicago. And so I was part of this government project even as a kid, okay? And of course, the Ivy League, that is a recruiting ground for, especially in the late 1950s, my professors were the ones from the Manhattan Project who made the atomic bomb. Hans Bethe, Phil Morrison, Robert Wilson, who later became head of the lab, the Batavia, the Fermi National Lab. And so these were the guys who were my teachers, and of course I was known to the government. So in any case,
Did we have music playing?
yeah, why don't we turn it down?
Yeah.
Yeah, turn it off.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did you feel as though you had psychic abilities at that time? Did you have experience?
No, not really. No, I was more into, not really, no. No, I wasn't, I mean, no, I'm not like Uri Geller, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, okay, so when I was about 12 or 13, now it gets, this is Twilight Zone, high strangeness, okay? There's a paper by Jacques Vallée about high strangeness. So this is after the Army, the initial Army thing, so this could very well be something that was set up by the Army psychiatrist, maybe, but. So I was about 12 or 13 years old, I received a call. I was alone, living in Brooklyn. I received a call from a cold metallic voice.
Like a robocall before there were robocalls.
That's right, 1952, and it had a cold metallic voice that sounded like Hawking, like Stephen Hawking's voice, but this is back in 1952.
Sure.
Back in 1952, and it said it was a conscious computer from a spacecraft from the future.
Ooh, that's
Okay,
cool. That's cool.
12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, right?
A little scary.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm alone in my apartment in New York, right?
Wow.
And
Awesome.
so
Sorry, what year was this?
about 1952, maybe 53. I was 12 or 13 years old.
All right.
Okay. But I remember I was reading this book that I got from the Brooklyn Public Library on switching circuits, relays, for the old, like the ENIAC machine, the beginnings of computers and stuff like that. So I sort of knew what a computer was, and it said they wanted to teach me how they work, and if I was interested, and then I was part of a group of about 400 they said bright receptive minds. It's called Metallic Voice, sounding like Stephen Hawking. And it said if I would begin to meet the others in 20 years.
Sure. Will you hold it?
I begin to meet the others in 20 years, which would be like 1972, 73.
Okay.
20 years go by, I'm a young assistant professor at San Diego State, and I'll make a long story short.
No, don't do this.
Well,
Make it longer.
all right, okay. Any case, he wanted to know Fred Allen Wolf. Where'd he go? He should hear this. Fred Allen Wolf and I were teaching physics at San Diego State. It's now 1973. Okay. And we were both married at the time. We both got divorced about the same time. And we became roommates living at the edge of the campus, two professors. I was like 30 years old. I wasn't even 30.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was about 30. He was about 35. And so Fred Wolf and I were living together as two bachelors, like the odd couple. It's like he was kind of neat and I'm kind of sloppy. And any case, he says a friend of Fred's from high school for Chicago named Bob Tobin shows up and visits us. Bob Tobin is a zany guy, he's an artist, but he's made a lot of money on the commodities market and the Chicago meat, whatever the hell. And he says the reason he comes to San Diego.
Girl,
Yeah.
this is this whole family is.
Oh wait, aren't you videoing this?
Yeah, you're perfectly squared. It
All
was
right,
beautiful.
okay, good. So so Bob says he comes to San Diego, and he says he has a book contract and a video series about this Israeli psychic named Uri Geller. We didn't know anything about this. Okay, this
He
is
wasn't
all,
big back then.
what?
Because he wasn't big back then.
Well, it's just that no, but Fred, you got to understand, Fred and I were teaching physics. Fred Wolf was a pretty straight guy at the time. He had Air Force contracts, government military contracts, and like a nuclear explosion, ionic, physics and stuff like that. We drove an Austin Healey, wore Bermuda shorts, short hair. And I was pretty straight too. And I had forgotten sort of what happened to me as a kid at that point. And we were having pretty straight Navy town. This is San Diego. You know what San Diego is. And especially back then. And I was part of the military-industrial complex, right? Went to UCSD, La Jolla. I mean, the guys was at Jason meetings, Pentagon stuff. The guys, some of the professors that they ran the Jason project was this Pentagon scientific sort of guys, working on stuff for Vietnam, for sensors and to catch the Viet Cong. It was part of that whole thing. It was also I was on Navy ships because San Diego State ran the PACE program for a program of float college education, and so I would be teaching physics to Marines and on naval ships, out at sea, and it was on aircraft carriers, stuff like that.
Now, did you get into more psychic things through the SRI project?
Yeah. Okay. So right. So what happened? So this guy Bob Tobin comes and he's telling us about this guy Uri Geller who can bend metal with his mind. How would that work? As physicists, he wanted to know how it would work, and so we didn't know. In any case, at this point, I had a graduate student named Roland Fuchs, and who came from a very wealthy family in Geneva, Switzerland.
See the guy who does weak measurement?
No. I don't know what happened to him. No, but at the time, here's the thing. At the time, Fred Allen Wolf, his friend Bob Tobin and I, we went to a party that my graduate student gave out on the beach. And he had, we were very sick. We had never smoked dope or anything like that. He gave us, we didn't know water pipe. Okay. Our first experience, with any case, so all this kind of weird stuff was going on. And
do you want milk with your
tea,
or
everybody
No, thank
tea?
you. Just, a little sugar perhaps?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any case, so around this time, all this weird high strangeness. Also, a guy named Fritjof Capra showed up.
Oh, sure.
He wrote the Tao of
That's
Physics. You
famous.
see, all this kind of weird stuff is happening.
How did he come into that circle?
Well, he just like because I had been with,
Showed up.
he just showed up.
He was just drawing
At
like
SRI?
everything.
No, 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 it's at San Diego State.
Oh, San Diego State, okay.
This is the spring. I'm talking now about the spring of 1973. Capra shows up. He had known about me from David Bohm. I had been at Birkbeck College with David Bohm for about a year, working with Bohm. And he shows up and he says, "Well, if you're ever in England, we could stay. I could stay with him in England. He knew all these interesting people." Okay. Suddenly, Fred Wolf gets an invitation to go to the University of London, Birkbeck College, where David Bohm is, to teach a course. Well, because the head of the department was a guy named John Hasted, atomic physics, and they had an opening. Fred was due for a sabbatical, and so did he want to come over there? And at the same time, he gets an offer to go to the University of Paris and by another guy in the same field. So he has these two temporary job offers, so he could teach part-time in Paris and part-time at Birkbeck College with David Bohm and I had been. And at the same time, I get a telegram from Abdus Salam, who was the head. He was the head of. Abdus Salam was the head of theoretical physics at Imperial College London, and also ran this International Center for Theoretical Physics in Trieste, Italy, funded by the International Atomic Energy Agency and UNESCO, and it was where Russian physicists and Chinese and East European, remember this is 1973, this is the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
It's still on very much, Cold War is still on. And so I get invited to go there.
Is the video.
Yeah, we got a video. So at the same time, Fred's invited to go to London and Paris. I'm invited also to go to Trieste, Italy. To work at this for a few months. All right, so Fred Wolf, it's like Bob Hope and Bing Crusher on the road to Europe. Okay, but leaving San Diego. And I had a girlfriend at the time who was traveling with me, and her mother had this is right before I'm about to go to Europe. It's like the summer. It's a summer or late June, July, and her mother had a house in Carmel Valley. So before going to, we were going to take the flight from San Francisco to London, and it was a couple of days before the flight. It's a Sunday actually, Sunday before I think the flight was on Wednesday. So I'm in Carmel Valley, and I open up the newspaper, the Sunday Chronicle, the magazine. There's a big article on Uri Geller and SRI, all right, and who's the guy, the astronaut, who just died recently, the guy who went to the moon.
We know who he is.
Buzz Aldrin?
Not Buzz. I meant Buzz too.
Neil?
Was it?
Neil Armstrong?
No, not Neil
No.
Armstrong. He ran the SRI. It'll come to me. I'm having a senior moment here. Any case, so I'm reading this thing about. I'm in bed with my girlfriend, and reading the paper,
You don't need to
and
do that loud.
Uri Geller, and I said, "Hey, that's the guy that Bob Tobin was telling us about." And I says, "I'm gonna." So Monday morning comes, and I call SRI. And I get this. It's a guy named Brendan O'Regan. Gets on the phone. A guy from an Irishman named Brendan O'Regan. He says, "Oh yeah, Dr. Sarfatti, we were hoping you would call. Can you come up to SRI?"
No.
Yes. And this
Ooh,
could be
that's
strange,
so
right? This has been weird. It's 20 years since the phone call. Okay.
Twilight Zone.
Oh, talking about this is all this yeah. Come on.
Wow.
So I get in my car, drive. It's only 2 hours, an hour and a half. Carmel Valley to Menlo Park, and I spend the next 17 hours there. And I meet Targ and Hal Putoff. Jacques Vallée was supposed to be there,
What was the venue in Menlo Park?
pardon me.
Where?
It's Stanford Research Institute.
Oh, sorry, at SRI. Got
Yeah,
it.
at SRI.
All right.
This is
And-
73.
This is June of '73.
Okay.
And and were there. In fact, now this is all a CIA operation.
For the rest of his life. You know that.
Came out later. Yeah.
No back.
Yeah, okay. So I'm at this. So we're there. In fact, there's a tape recording of the meeting, of part of the meeting. This is actually all on tape. It's all. It used to be on the internet. It probably still is on the internet somewhere. It's some various meetings, and we're at this place with the. I went to a guy, Dean Brown. He was some industrialist, Dean Brown at the time, and we're talking. And suddenly, Russell Todd starts mentioning UFOs from the future. You know, and Putoff is there. Hal Putoff is there.
So are these guys pretty much your age, or are they much older?
Yeah,
than
no,
you,
we're
or
the same
they-
age. We're
Same
about the
age.
Yeah, we're
okay.
the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, Hal's Hal's about
That's
80.
already
Hal's like
good.
5 years older than me, so
Yeah.
Hal's in his early 80s now. But he was, you know, like 35, 36. Fred Allen Wolf, Hal Putoff, Russ Todd, they're all about the same age. They're about
Okay.
3 or 4 years older than me.
So
And-
they would not have been the people arranging this, but they were people like you who had been contacted possibly, right?
Yeah, they're all
They-
contactees. Yeah, all,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and not just yeah, and Hal. Oh yeah, all. But the point is, here it's 20 years later, meeting these people, and this is a CIA operation, but they're being funded by the CIA. They didn't tell me that at the time, but I kind of, you know, and so this is all on tape. It's all recorded. And then I said, then I get my, I said, hey, as soon as it's the UFOs, I tell them the story of the cold metallic voice, you know, from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is all recorded. And then Brendan O'Regan was kind of a trickster type guy, and he says, "Oh yeah, well we have data on several hundred of those phone calls." You know, so I mean, I'm just, you know, that's what he says. Any case, they say, well, look, so they say, one of the reasons they want me there, of course, how did I get there? It's pretty weird why I'm there, right? They said, we know you're going to see David Bohm at Birkbeck College, and we want to set up experiments on them testing Uri Geller, you know, to get replication. And
Yeah,
can you
like
help us
controlled-
set that up?
Like a controlled experiment.
Like controlled experiment, yeah. So part of my job, I tried to do that. So I landed in London with Sharon, my girlfriend, who, by the way, had worked for naval intelligence at the American Embassy in London before I met her. Okay, you know, she was a Stanford grad. I was a Stanford grad, and we stayed with Fritjof Capra in London. Okay, and I go to Birkbeck College and help arrange, and then Fred Wolf is coming over there anyway. So as a result of that meeting, I'm on my way to Trieste, Italy, with Salam, so we helped set up the tests of Uri Geller, which happened a few months later, with Arthur C. Clarke, Arthur Kessler, you know, Darkness and Noon, Arthur Kessler, and all kinds of people. You know, got a lot of publicity.
Was Pat Price a part of that group? Or?
Did you know Pat Price?
I knew his daughter.
Oh, you know his daughter.
We're
Oh,
British.
yeah.
Tea in the kitchen, help yourself.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right,
okay.
we're
Right.
simple here.
Can I bring you something?
Please, yeah, some
Wait,
tea.
what would you like? Just tea?
Can we-
Yeah,
Well,
just black
do you
tea.
want chamomile tea though?
No,
Jack?
black tea.
Black tea.
Black
All
tea.
right.
Can
Fair
can we
Okay,
just
Pat Price.
Yeah,
Now,
Pat
wait a minute.
Price.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Well, that's very. See, everything is so connected.
Does he do this all the time?
I was funded in the mid '80s. I was funded by a retired CIA station chief, now dead, named Harold Chipman, here in San Francisco, who was a partner of Pat Price's. They had a private detective agency in Oakland. So
Right.
and Hal was one of the guys who set up the SRI experiments. He was like one of the case officers for the CIA at the time in the '70s. You know, so, I mean, it was all, you know. So I never met Pat Price. You know, Pat Price died, you know, strange death in Las Vegas. And Putoff was there, and Kit Green, and all these people. They were all,
That's the story I got from his daughter. She thought he was like
Killed.
offed. Yeah.
yes, that's the story I heard too. Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
As a matter of fact, Chipman later on was offed.
What year was that? And also
I don't know when Price will.
Pat Price would have been, I think, was offed in '85 or something.
Yeah, around
Or
85.
He
Yeah, he
passed
was-
away in '85.
Yeah,
I don't
at a
know what
strange, at a
happened.
hotel room in Las Vegas or
It
something.
was very
yeah.
strange. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, but no, it wasn't '85. I don't think it was. I think it was before.
No, you're right. It must have been before that.
Yeah,
I'm trying
because-
to remember. No, it might have been as early as '77 or '78
Yes.
when I was having conversations with his daughter.
no,
and he was
he
already
was
dead
dead.
at that time, so it might have been '75.
Yes, he was dead because
75.
Harold Chipman was killed by polonium poisoning by the Russians allegedly around 86, 87.
Uh-huh.
And because he was he was funding me in like the mid 80s, so that's why. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty weird.
So is it in the remote view? Did you do the part of the remote viewing? or-
I helped conduct some experiments with Elizabeth Rauscher as part of their thing.
Is that where you had like a sort of a development of psychic?
No, I know. I was never
Skill,
saying.
or-
I helped conduct some experiments in
Oh,
the
I see.
field back,
Okay.
but that was it was a peripheral thing that
Right.
it's described in the book How the Hippie Saved Physics. You know,
Yeah. Well, I'd definitely be
yeah.
downloading that. In fact, maybe even
Yeah,
before I
yeah,
leave this
Yeah,
house.
yeah, you should definitely read that. You know. And it's also in my book, Destiny Matrix. You get that on. You can download that too. Yeah. So where were we? So. What-
SRI.
Yeah, SRI. So that's so so the point is what this computer allegedly from the future said in 1950 was going to happen happened. So that's why I met Uri Geller, Andrea Paharic, got involved in all this thing, and the strange is still happening. It's still going on. It's happening to this day, and it's getting
What's happening to this day?
okay, because the physics I'm working on is exactly the physics
Are you getting tea?
of that the computer. I'm working on conscious artificial intelligence, nanoelectronic machine. I think I know how to make, in principle now. I mean, I think it'll be possible to make in the very near future nanoelectronic devices which will be as conscious as humans, as conscious as we are. You know,
There's a huge gap between what we have right now in artificial intelligence and training neural networks
yeah.
and having something that can kind of self-determine its.
Yeah, well,
wonder
that's
where
the
that's gonna
problem
happen.
I solved.
Is it?
That's the problem I was asked to work on as a kid by Werner Erhard, by these guys at SRI, by that project, by the CIA people, Kit Green guys involved in all the psychic weird, we call the phenomena. When we set up Werner Erhard, we set up the Physics Consciousness Research Group back in with Erhard's money, government money, and also Air Force money. We're in Esalen, that's where we had that dancing woolly masters, it's all that Tao of physics, all that was funded by my group that with Werner Erhard's and government money. And we've been working on it for all this time, a lot of false leads, there's a lot of nonsense going on, but in the last couple of years, I believe, I could be wrong, I have solved the problem in a precise, as a physicist, PhD, studying with these top guys, using those standards, testable things. The problem is now solved. The problem that the CIA wanted me to work on has been solved. It's now solved, and it's pretty easy, actually.
What would you say as a statement of that problem?
They call it the hard problem. How does consciousness emerge from matter?
And does,
Simple. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but Roger Penrose, does he factor into this?
Yeah, but I actually, I took courses with Penrose. Penrose was at Birkbeck when I was there. Yeah,
Okay.
but it's Penrose's theory is not quite. I don't think his theory is right. It's close. He talks about gravitational collapse, and from gravity. Yeah, I don't think you need that. It's
Okay. And then Stuart Hameroff, that kind of
Hameroff is on. Yeah, I use Hameroff's. Hameroff's empirical discovery of the microtubules. Yes, that plays a role in our consciousness, but by imitating that with nanoelectronics,
Got it.
the dipoles. Is it tea?
That's your tea,
Or
Your
what's-
Highness.
Oh, is that my tea?
That's your.
This is my tea. Okay.
It's hot.
Okay, but
alright?
just put down there. Well,
It's
don't put it
doubly
on.
challenged.
So microtubules, yay. That's what
Oh,
I'm here for, is the microtubules.
Yeah, the
You came
microtubule.
from microtubules?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. Oh, you do?
I didn't know we
So
were getting
brilliant.
into
That's
microtubules.
very hard.
Okay, what? Okay.
So I wanted you to make
Microtubules are simply electric dipoles.
Right. It's an
Electric
implementation.
dipoles. Okay,
Yeah.
now, so we can do.
Well, it's hot.
Okay,
Jack.
we can make artificial, with the nano electronics. We can make tubes of like Bucky tubes,
Yeah.
and put, electric dipoles around them. We pump them resonantly, and we can make artificial microtubules. They're going to be conscious. So basically, imitate that. When Hameroff took his electron micrographs pictures to an Intel engineer, he said, "What chip is that?"
Ah.
Okay,
Really?
I mean, the point is,
Thank you so much.
All right.
all we are just carbon-based computers. You know, we're nano-electronic machines is what we are. I mean, it's all the microtubules, a couple of nanometers across. I mean, so we can just that's basically the idea. But I've developed it more because, you know, this is all like destiny working. When I was at UCSD as a graduate student in the 60s, this guy Herbert Froelich. Herbert Froelich was he was one of the pioneers in superconductivity. And in La Jolla, back in the late 60s, there was this guy named Bert Matthias, famous experimental superconductivity guy, and a guy named P.W. Anderson, Philip Anderson, just has a Nobel Prize from Princeton, used to come there. So all these guys in solid-state physics, there was a big solid-state physics, Walter Cohn, some really famous people at UCSD when I was a student there. And Froelich used to come. And so I got to know Froelich, and I learned Froelich had this idea about, this is like 1967, 68. He had this idea of biological membrane, which is also a bunch of dipoles. It's like microtubule. I mean, it's not that different. And how when you pump the dipoles, and there's a certain resonant coupling between the electromagnetic field, the pump electromagnetic field, and the electric dipole moments, you'll get sort of like a lasing thing. When above a critical power input threshold, everything gets coherent. Yeah, it gets coherent. Okay, it's like a laser. It's kind of like it's an analog. In fact, the equation is very much like laser equation.
But there's a suggestion about the heat.
No,
right?
it's bullshit. The tech mark is told. By the way, tech mark is a
That's fine, but why is it bullshit? I want to understand.
for a bunch of reasons, several reasons. But let me get back to it. But
Yeah, okay.
his argument is
Let me get
fallacious.
that in.
It's fallacious.
Okay.
Okay, but here's
Just listen sometimes.
no, I'm not going to listen. I'm talking. I'm going to listen. I'm talking to you. You know, I think from Midnight Cowboy. I'm walking here. I'm talking here. Okay, so but the point is the tech mark. By the way, Tegmo was just at this meeting I was at in London with
Okay.
Put Off and Target, and he gave very glib sort of. I mean, Tegmo, he's a good-looking guy. He's a lot of charisma. But he's
That goes
kind of
a long way in
I think
science. You would
he's
be
kind of
right.
he's kind of a lightweight in my opinion. You know,
Oh, yeah.
he's a good speaker, but he's not as smart as he thinks he is. But,
So I want to ask you something about the.
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something about a pump, and I don't get
Yeah,
what
it's the
pump
pump.
is.
What happens
What
is,
the pump?
and I've just developed this further, the Froelich idea, the reason we are conscious is because the microtubes are being pumped. That's the metabolism, the metabolic energy,
Oh, it's a
the
metabolic.
ATP and all that. That's just like when you pump a laser, and it's making it coherent.
Why
So-
why does a microtubule need that input of energy?
Because, and this is what I've done now, this is the Froelich effect, because what Froelich basically showed, and I have none of the details worked out, when you pump this thing, when you take a system, it's superconductivity, they're looking for room temperature superconductors. They haven't found it. Why haven't they found it? The reason they haven't found it is nobody knows about the Froelich effect. It's been sort of forgotten, but I remember it by being with Froelich. That's okay, which is okay. Okay, what happens is when you pump a system with energy and it's resonantly, it's coupled, strong coupling of the input photons to the charges in the material. When that coupling is strong enough, you're in a non-equilibrium, you're off thermodynamic equilibrium, but there is an effective temperature of that non-equilibrium system. It's like a temperature, like a local temperature. And the way the equations work out, the effective temperature, here's what happens. If you have dipoles, those have like discrete energy like the dipoles that point along the electric field, it's lower energy, and if it's anti-parallel to the electric field, it's higher energy, so it's a discrete energy spectrum. Okay, what happens then, as you pump the thing, there's an effective, it's called like a spin temperature. What happens is the temperature goes up to plus infinity. It's just a formal thing. It's finite energy, but the actual the temperature is a derivative of entropy with respect to energy. And 1 over the temperature is the derivative of the entropy with respect to the energy. And in a finite system of dipoles, what happens if you plot the energy is here, and if you plot the entropy of of n dipoles, a bunch of dipoles, the entropy function goes like that, it goes back, and it comes down. At that midpoint, the derivative is flat, but it's the inverse temperature, so that's effectively a positive infinite temperature. And then beyond that point, it's a negative spin temperature. It goes to negative. But beyond that point, that's population, that's like in a laser, you have population inversion. You have more dipoles in the higher energy state than low energy state, and then when they radiate photons, it's coherent. It's like a laser beam. Okay. So the equations in the microtubule system are very similar. There's something like that happening. Formally, it's like that happening. And then, so there's what's this called coherent phase transition. You get this coherence, and it's just what Hameroff is looking for. It says, he wants coherence. And so
it doesn't have to be cold in the sense
no,
that
it's decoupled. The ambient positive temperature of the environment doesn't
matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
There's nothing to
Okay. So, and also, but that's for dipoles. There's another case, like if you have like a superconductor, we have these Cooper pairs moving around, or like it's like a Bose gas, and they have the center of mass momenta of those Cooper pairs is continuous energy spectrum. There, the equation, a little bit, it's a difference of sign in the actual equation. There, what happens is the effective temperature, it doesn't go to plus infinity or negative, it doesn't do anything. That's a discrete effect. That's a discrete one effect. For this continuous case, the temperature just goes from the ambient temperature, whatever it is, at zero pumping, and it keeps going, effective temperature keeps going down and down and down toward absolute zero. Okay? And then when it reaches a point, if there's an ordinary Bose-Einstein condensation, critical temperature gets below that, goes coherent. That's how you get room temperature superconductors. So this all can be done. It can be done in the lab now.
Okay.
Now wait. So it turns out.
Jack, listen, he's asking a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to
Yeah,
differentiate something. In Hameroff's work, there was a guy in Japan who had put microtubules on a network analyzer, and then he
Yeah.
looked at. So,
Ooh,
are you seeing? Yeah,
what's that?
and there's all these wonderful resonances. It's
Really?
it's a common piece of microwave. You use it in microwave telemetry and not telemetry, but metrology.
Yeah.
To look at networks, and you can see the over frequency, what the impedance of the system is, and what they find is you get these nice nulls, like what you would see in a transmission line or an antenna, but a few in the kilohertz, hundreds of kilohertz, a few in the megahertz, and a few in the gigahertz. But would that correspond to these superconducting?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and also, basically, yes. I mean, I have to see the details when you talk about it. Send me the details.
Sure.
But just early in March 8th, I was at this meeting in LA, American Physical Society, and I'm giving, I gave my talk, and there's a video of that. So I'm in the elevator with this German guy from Hamburg, Max Parkins in Hamburg. It's a coincidence. I bet none of this is a coincidence, all like weird, right? I start telling him what I'm working on, and his eyes light, his name is Michael Fechner, and he said, they're doing experiments like what we were talking about, and they see room temperature transient superconductivity when they pump the system far off equilibrium, just exactly what I'm talking about.
why is it transient?
Well, because they're
You're
just using
transient.
pulse or something. I'm just their experiment. They're just,
Yeah.
they're saying,
As
I'll
opposed
send
to
you the
continuous-
papers. I think I did send you the papers. What?
As opposed to a continuous wave, or
Yeah, well, whatever the experiment, they did a pulse. I don't know, they did some kind of,
Okay.
I'm not, however but they are seeing what looks like a transient high temperature. They have a marker for some kind of photon condensate. It's like a superconductor. I mean, they call it like a high temperature transient superconductor effect, which exactly, but it's due, the pump input, power input has to be above a certain threshold. They see it. It's kind of like a laser. So it's just what I'm talking about. So there's beginning to be evidence for it.
so ATP is required for microtubules to function.
Yeah, just a source of energy, whatever.
How is ATP coupled into?
Can you hold this? I need to go get my charger.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And if you can continue. I'm going to step out and I'll be right back.
Oh,
I'm going to get my
So
little,
that was just a question to you. What does ATP
He's
have to
getting
do
his
with
charger.
pumping microtubules?
Oh, sure.
Well, I'm not sure. It's like energy transport, right? It's like takes
Yeah.
the sugars around and stuff. Yeah, beyond
You
that, I
good,
don't
Jack?
know. I'm really just getting into this.
Okay.
Okay, so
Anything else?
I discovered the Penrose and Hameroff article. and I've done a little bit of research. It seems like the neurologists are not yet onto microtubules, other than it's like a skeletal structure of cells.
Yeah,
So,
it's a
you
lot,
know,
the
but what
left
would
hand
they
does
know,
what the
right?
right hand's doing. There's a lot
Yeah,
of,
exactly.
Hello, welcome to
yeah,
life.
there's a lot of fragmentation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But well, I haven't gotten very deeply into it, so.
So the thing is, I mean, right now, I mean, what I'm really facing is a stupidity barrier. People just
I know it gets you really angry, and
No.
I don't know why, but
Well, why? Because we're doing all this great stuff, and they're all looking at you know what it is. Also, it's always money, because there's certain vested interest in doing what they're doing. You know, like Ted Mark has his thing. He's a big professor at MIT. He gets these big contracts, stuff like that. They don't want to really know how to do it. You know, they don't really want to solve the problem. Is what I find. Everybody, and you know, a lot of scientists.
you're surrounded by money.
What?
You're surrounded by money, you know that.
I'm surrounded by money, but it's not going in the right place.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
So
Alright,
what would
okay,
you do?
fair enough, fair enough.
What I'd like to do is to get somebody like Elon Musk, but apparently Elon Musk.
Do you know what that is?
I know people who know Elon Musk. They said he's not really, he's pretty narrow in what he wants to do. Which is good, but I don't think he knows enough to really get what this means. But Google would be
Do you wanna
interested.
plug
So
in the
there
ki- in
could
the
be a way
kitchen
in
or-
with
No, no.
Elon, and that is there could be a way in with
Oh,
Elon,
it's portable.
and that is
Right,
through
okay.
because he's big on brain-computer interface.
Yeah.
Very nice
He's
to
putting
meet
a
you.
ton of money into that. And he's putting
Yeah,
Musk?
well,
Musk
yeah,
is?
yeah, but
Gareth.
to get to him, people say
Really
they know him, but they
long
don't do
project.
anything.
oh yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
Do you want
I guess what I'm
anything
thinking
else?
is
Chips
if-
or guacamole
If there was
or-
some gold in
Okay.
what you're talking about,
Yeah.
that technology coupled with because you're kind of in the same domain.
Get some power
If
going
you
here.
want to talk to brain cells, you got to be talking to the microtubules
Yeah.
ultimately.
Yeah,
Um,
brain cells are made of microtubules.
right.
Yeah,
That's,
right.
that's the whole point. It's not
Yeah.
the neurons. It's not
Yeah.
about the neurons.
No.
It's
It's a
microtubules.
finer
Well,
level.
the
Yeah.
neurons are doing something, but it's kind of a
Yeah, the
second
neurons
order,
are-
it's a
it's a
second
gross-
order
it's a- yeah,
The
exactly.
type of
neurons
thing.
are the input-output devices.
Yeah. Oh, they move your hand around, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that.
That's
But it's,
different
they're
from
getting
conscious.
Yeah,
all
you're
the
doing very
computing's being
well.
done at a finer level. It's just it's I mean, it's the like microtubules are sort of like the processor, and the neurons are like the input-output. The microphones and
Yeah, or the robot
the
arms.
keyboards and stuff like that. That's what
Yeah.
the neurons are.
Now,
Yeah.
so these microtubules, is that what creates consciousness, or?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
What consciousness, that's what Hameroff says, but Hameroff just had an intuition. He doesn't, and then he went to Penrose. Penrose's a very smart guy, but even smart guys make mistakes. Penrose is brilliant.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah. And what did Winston Churchill say? That the definition of success is going from one failure to the next.
What?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Winston
you
Churchill,
don't-
that's his uncle, his cousin, he's related to Churchill. But it says Churchill said something like
What did he say?
the definition of success is being able to go from one failure to the next. And
Exactly.
keep doing it, and persisting.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. That's, I concur.
So
So-
when you said, do the microtubules create consciousness, there's another way of thinking about it, right? Which is that our brain is not a creator of consciousness, it's a transducer.
Okay, no, wait, okay, yeah, okay.
Picking up
That's
the
a good point.
signal.
All right, okay, but that's true, and I agree with that. But the point is, I made it now very precise. There's no speculation anymore. It's very precise. It's as precise as the Schrodinger equation, as the Einstein field equation. I mean, it's very precise. I show it.
Do you think so, John?
I know. Yes, of course I think so. That's what I've been 50 years working on. Yes, I think
So now when I hear about you
I
talk
know
about
some.
your
Well, I know.
3 levels,
What?
when I hear you talk about your 3 levels,
Yeah.
there's the
Classical,
classical, physical,
quantum, and
then there's the
I'm talking
quantum,
about the post-quantum level.
and then the post-quantum
Yeah.
level, which was
That's
consciousness.
yes.
And you seem to say that that was the source of the physical realm.
No, I'm not saying. Other people say that.
I see.
Deepak Chopra and maybe. Okay, no, I can.
Maya Angelou and our friends.
Okay, here's the thing. According to the theory, the post-quantum mechanics, it's a very it's just quantum mechanics, but with additional stuff, a little bit. According to that, you can have an electromagnetic field that can be conscious. The post-quantum mechanical electromagnetic field is a conscious field. What gravity, space-time is a gravitational field. that gravitational field can become, if it's in the post-quantum realm, it will be conscious. That means the universe can be conscious. You're talking about God.
Right.
Okay, super intelligence. Okay, that's all conceivable in the physics now. However, that only happens. Here's my AK-47. Shoot the bullets like
That's the
all right.
Viagra.
All right. The point is that only happens though. You only get the post-quantum realm when you have this Freudic pumping mechanism above critical threshold. See, that's when it happens. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. Okay, and this, according to, if I'm right. And so the thing is this, but our universe is an open universe. See, we're living, the dark energy is accelerating, so we're an open system. The observable part of the universe is an open system, so it's being pumped by energy from the outside. So it could be that we're conscious. If the universe was not an open system, if it wasn't, if they didn't see that the expansion of space and the universe was accelerated in its expansion from this anti-gravitational dark energy field, then the universe could not be conscious. I could say that. It might be conscious. I mean, and that would be, in fact, I have a whole
What do you think about that?
story on it.
Well, I like it.
You.
Yeah, I like it. It's because
I mean, I could let me put it this way.
It's a meeting of the mind.
I can answer any question that anybody can put to me. I just see, what does the theory say?
No, Jack, the brilliant thing is
Okay.
to bring it up for 1 second is
Yeah.
you're an incredibly smart human being. You have a massive heart.
Okay, well, yeah, that's
Get
yeah.
it?
But let me also say this. But remember, in '52, this whatever it was said that they were going to teach me how to do it. So it's not me. That's now comes the psychic thing. There's the psychic thing. You want to know if I'm psychic? Well, I'm getting
You're not
information
psychic
from
if you
somewhere.
don't like-
Okay,
you
but
don't
the point
Jack.
is,
He's found out.
that's the way all creativity works.
Uh-huh.
See, that's the thing, that we're all getting it from there.
So,
Nobody-
what do you make of the Nimitz business?
Oh, well, I'm
Good
working
question.
on it.
Good-
What,
Yeah.
what's the
Great
Nimitz business?
That was in the email thread.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great,
There's links to,
great
Well, I've
question.
been working on that for years too. The same, part of the same thing.
Great.
Yes.
It was an ET encounter, right? Or an
No, I think the
sighting,
time.
or-
I think it's my. But they're from. It's the my. It's the computer. It's my. It's the guys who contacted me when I was a kid. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
But you guys know about the Bentwaters incident, right?
no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know about Bentwaters? That
No,
was
what you
like-
talking about? Is that the
was
English
It
thing?
was like 3 days. It was like 1980. It was like 3 days of contact. It
In the
was like-
British.
it was a U.S. Air Force base,
Yeah.
but located in England.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
East Anglia.
Yeah. I know people
And
were
the-
involved in it.
And one of the guys touched the ship and he got this huge download of
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
And one of the things he was told was that we are you. He said, "Who are you?" He said,
Yeah. From the
"We are
future.
you."
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like they were from the future.
Yeah. And so that's what I think it is.
Yeah.
Because that's. I mean, let's put it this way. This is not so much like ordinary. This is so like an Agatha Christie mystery. Like it's yeah.
No, that's where I come from.
It's yeah.
I'm
Well, it's
English.
partly it's like a police. It's like a mystery story too, right? There's science involved. There's forensics. And I mean, all I know is what they told me when I was a kid. Everything they said was going to happen happened. It's still happening in spades.
Who
They,
told you?
the Nimitz thing is what is part of this whole thing. Okay, just the way.
Nimitz
Okay,
is a freeway, right?
what?
I love, sorry.
And then it's
I didn't hear what you said. I didn't hear you.
I said Nimitz is a freeway, right?
and a ship.
No, it's an aircraft carrier.
Oh.
It's a USS Nimitz, it's battle group, U.S. Navy, off the coast of San
Yeah,
Diego.
but you're all connected to all that other stuff.
Yeah, well, of course, I was on aircraft carrier. I was on the Ranger, which is the one they use in Top Gun. I was on the Ranger for months out in the Indian Ocean. In fact,
Okay.
photographs of me. Yeah, no. So no. This thing they're
I'm
seeing,
moving here.
and Hal Portoff is working on that very actively, and so am I. Yeah, I understand how they fly. It's all part of the same equations.
So tell us, how do they fly?
They fly because
You
they
can't
have.
tell too much.
They
You
fly.
can't-
They
you
fly
can't tell
because
too
of the
much.
same equations I'm telling you about consciousness also explain how these things fly. It's the same set of
So
equations.
it's linked to gravity somehow.
Yes. What
Yeah,
happens is.
well, but-
What happens is. Look at this special. Okay. What happens is this. when you look at Einstein's field equations for how matter generates gravity, there's G, Newton's constant G, capital G, divided by the fourth power of the speed of light.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, if you can make that speed of light in a material, a special material, go very small, since the speed of light is in the denominator, it's going to zero, the whole coupling, this whole string coupling goes up and becomes large. And that's what they're doing. Now, these special materials, they go metamaterials, and and in fact, they found these materials. I mean, this is, okay. In any case, what I've shown I'm able to show that you could, with these materials, you can slow down the speed of light in the material. In fact, they see that bosons and superconductors, the speed of light gets slowed down. The index of refraction for different frequencies and wave vectors goes up, gets very large. The resonance and the scattering. So the index of refraction gets very large, so the speed of light in the material slows down.
Sure, gravity does it in water. Even,
Well,
right?
yeah, but not much,
Yeah,
not much.
right,
Yeah,
but it's
I'm talking
not
about
weird
the speed of light
that it
going down
happens.
to almost zero, going down to a centimeter per second. A factor of 10 to the
Ooh,
10, 10 to
everything
the
gets
9
really
as the fourth power. That really, so that
And it's only
means,
for some frequencies, it's only for resonances?
yeah, for resonances. But what we want to do is, see, but the point is, see, there's electro engineers, there's the near field, electromagnetic field, there's
Well,
the
that's
far
what
field.
he does, love.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, so wait, the point is this. It'll work for both. It'll work for both far radiation fields and for near fields. But what we want to do, okay, what is the gravitational field of the Earth? To make an analogy with electromagnetic field, it's the near gravitational field. You know, it's not,
Do you agree
it's
with
not,
that?
yeah, it's not
Oh, yeah,
radiation.
yeah.
Yes, it's not
Near
radiation.
field, far field.
Yeah, yeah. So what we want to do, the way those things are flying, is they're using the effect that first of all they've captured some of the materials. You know, we have some of the materials, and they're exactly what I said. They're 80. They're apparently, according to what I've been told, they are like it starts from like the atomic level, 10 minus 8, up to it's like lattices within lattices. You know, like nested like Russian dolls of lattices. Starting at least an atomic scale, to like 10 to the minus 8 centimeters up to larger things. So they're getting different frequencies, and it's like 80 layers. Okay. There's also some uranium stuff, so it has its own internal energy source. It's pretty weird stuff. There's nothing we can engineer. It's beyond our current capacity.
So when you say they captured some of this,
From the Roswell and there've been other crashes, and they shot down things, whatever. There's more there than they're letting the public know. And as a matter of fact,
That's circumspect then.
No, well, the
Circumspect.
we just had a meeting. Do you know about what the Bohemian Club is? You know what the Bohemian Grove?
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
Well, JC does. JC
Yeah.
knows that. Yeah.
One of my
You're
friends who has involved in UFO research is a member of the Bohemian Club. He's an important member, actually, and he had us. We spent the weekend with a couple of scientists talking about all this stuff just a couple of weeks ago, actually. And back in 1969, he was a CIA. Well, he was ex-Marine military. He was a Marine tank commander, and his brother. He took the London MI6, various
MI6, all right,
yeah,
I'm believing you
MI6 involved in all this stuff. and he tested it himself because he's actually a sculptor, metal. So he has acetylene torches, and he actually has a foundry. He's a pretty famous artist now, actually, and he's just doing $1.5 million project for Facebook, doing a big. In any case, so he actually handled the stuff, and he said he had this big army. He had this big
Thank you.
like it said Army Air Force on it. It was like 1950. It was like from Roswell. It was and with stuff and pieces of metal inside that he was entrusted with for like a week. And he picked up this. He took it. This strut. If you read Phil Corso's The Day After Roswell, it talks about these pieces of it was like aluminum foil, so it was very strong. And if you tried to bend it, it would just bounce back, but it had inscriptions on it. He had that. He actually had that. And it had the whole thing, all this metal, like it weighed like a couple of ounces. So it was already kind of like an anti-gravity. Because if if the information I'm getting is right, it has some uranium energy source in it.
Hmm.
You know, there are like impurities.
So that's what would be pumping it?
Yeah, the radioactivity pumping it. There's a radioactive source, some uranium, and kind of stuff. But it's small enough, you know. Well, some people have gotten burns from touching the stuff, so that could be. So it's all kind of consistent. It's all like fitting together. But the point is, it's all, everything that. I mean, it's happening in spades now. All this thing with the revelation from the Department of Defense of all this stuff. It's just happened the last few months.
Exactly.
Disclosure?
Disclosure, yes.
Yeah.
Why did they suddenly go public? Do you have any
Well,
theories?
good. Well,
or like,
part of
why
the reason
now?
may be because I've solved the basic equations. It could be connected with my stuff. And let me tell you another thing.
People.
Yeah, I was interviewed by Putin's people, by the Russian intelligence. They took videos. They know all about this stuff. This is back 3 years ago. I was told that Putin himself is interested in what I'm doing
Wow.
by this the FSB officer.
Oh, tell
The
them
CIA
to
knows
come up-
because everything
come,
that happened.
come up with the lolly. And the
Yeah, yeah. And if you go on LinkedIn, there's like 300 Iranian scientists, engineers, students who are going to say, oh, one of my CIA guys says there's guys from the Iranian CIA. They're all monitoring all the stuff that I'm doing.
Oh, wow.
So this is, and also the Chinese, it's happening all over now. I mean, the cat's out of the bag. You can't hide anything on the internet anymore, right?
Yeah.
And I never signed, I'm working on my own. Well, I have some private funding. But, so I have never signed, I don't see classified documents. I'm just coming up with it.
Mm.
So I'm a source of the information. So I don't know, but it may not be a coincidence that just as I'm solving, I've been sort of saying I've been solving the problem for the last 2 or 3 years now, since 2015. Okay, and this came out. So, and who's in charge? People I work with, Hal Putoff. Kent Green. I know these are the guys who I've known for decades, and they're the ones who are. Hal Putoff is the chief physicist for this new group.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Could be. Could be.
Are you associated at all with Stephen Greer, or do you think he's on track or
no.
off track?
Stephen Greer is crazy and he's
Okay.
dangerous.
Okay.
I met him. Yeah. No. He's a. I mean, I think he may be a genuine contactee. That.
Jack doesn't mince his words, as you
Yeah.
can tell.
No, because I had and I didn't like his. He's very. I think he kind of cheats people with the money. They have these
Yeah.
seances.
I know
and-
Steve.
It's not about
Yeah.
money,
Yeah.
Jack.
Yeah, no, it's about Stephen Greer. It's about the
I've
money.
been on
Don't
a
tell me.
couple
I
of
know.
these
I said,
expeditions.
watch the
Very
guy.
interesting. I'll tell you about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
well said.
he's
Very
a
neutral.
charismatic guy. He's
He's very charismatic.
very charismatic.
And I think he believes it.
Oh, I'm sure he
But
believes it.
You go on the expedition with him, and nothing happens.
Yeah. No.
You go out in the desert, and he's a spellbinder. I mean,
Yes.
you're meditating.
It's a
and you're
cult.
talking,
It's a cult.
and
It's a
It's a
cult.
little cult like
You've gone.
that.
A little cult. It is a cult.
We saw a few interesting things. I saw maybe 3 things that I couldn't explain.
Yeah.
But it was like that nobody came down and landed, right? There was no
Yeah.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind
What were the
experience
things
or
you couldn't
even
explain?
close. Huh?
What were the things you couldn't explain?
Well, about 2 a.m. he pointed up in the sky, and there were these little things moving around, darting around like insects. And they were lights, and they were way up there. It was clear that it was in the celestial plane, you might say. And they weren't stars, and they weren't moving the way that an airplane would move. And
Jack, do you want some more tea?
so it's like, okay,
Well, that's-
there it was. I did see that. And he had some explanation. A meteor goes over, and he'll say that's an Arcturian craft.
Yeah, that's the
Right?
thing.
So
Okay,
you have to,
really,
that's
you
why-
have to rule
really?
out some things.
Exactly. That's why I consider him dangerous, because
Right.
with friends like that, you don't need enemies, because that's just lets the
Well,
bunkers.
Exactly.
So it's a lot of crazy. I mean, he's smart, he's charismatic, but he's dangerous because he is charismatic, and he's somewhat insane. He's insane.
Well, he believes this.
I know he believes
does
it.
believe
I know.
But he's not just faking us, because if he wanted to fake us, he could have put on a really nice display, right? He could
Yeah.
have some people out in the desert shooting off
Listen.
lasers, and he didn't do that.
I don't doubt that maybe at times there's some genuine contact going on, but the point is it's just he's playing a dangerous game, and he's taking advantage of
Is
people.
anyone allergic?
And he's not the only one. Plenty of people like that, like
And
him.
the thing, the Atacama thing now.
Who?
The Atacama Desert, the little creature, the
Yeah.
little 6-inch creature.
Yeah.
Oh,
Stanford did a definitive study that
No,
is
it's a
a
human.
human being.
no.
And
Well,
now
no,
say
that's
that-
no, that's not quite correct. It came out only
No, no, no,
91%.
No, they've been working on it since then.
How-
They just like
It was
2
the
weeks ago,
mitochondria
Jack
was
sent it to
given.
me, about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah,
They
they-
sent out the definitive, they had done, they
Yeah.
completed it.
But how is it only 6 inches tall if it's like
I think it was,
6 years
it was
old or
a
something?
fetus like, it was right, it was not,
Yeah, I
still
think they
more.
decided it is a fetus, and the thing that made them think it was 6 years old was some other mechanism
Oh, I
Yeah.
that
see,
they
okay.
can now explain.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But Steve is fighting it. He's like saying it's a cover-up, it's a conspiracy.
Well, he's a paranoid, he's also paranoid,
He is,
yeah.
yeah.
And
He is
these are the kind of
He's a
people,
little paranoid.
it could be like, he's like the guy from Jonestown. He got people killing themselves, so, has that kind of power, it's dangerous. And I mean, no, I knew Werner Air. Werner Air was a little bit like that, but not as bad as, as
So in
Okay.
terms of engineering these materials,
Yeah.
and sorry, it sounds
No, go
like-
ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
What would it take to build this up, to fabricate it?
what it takes is money on a team. Or there's all this, there's a lot of good, the first thing it would take is to just look at all the literature. There's a lot of literature, all this stuff now in the graphene, nanoelectronics, all this stuff with the vials, the vial spinners, all this stuff in topological materials, the two-dimensional stuff, quantum wells and wires, all that stuff. There's a lot of good experimental work going on, a lot of good theoretical work going on, but it's all fragmented. Nobody's put it together to get the big picture. So the first thing I would want to do, with a couple $1 million, is to just hire a team of analysts, like big data people, because it's a big data problem.
Hire me.
Maybe you can run it, and just do a literature sweep and filter out what are the relevant papers, like this group in Hamburg, right up my alley. I mean, they may not be the only ones, and maybe all kinds of things.
What is
Okay.
the scoop in Hamburg?
The Max Planck Institute,
Oh, right, okay.
of solid state physics. It's a very prestigious place, and they're seeing what I'm predicting.
Yeah. And
So-
I just want to ask a question. When you posed your question, you're talking about creating consciousness through materials, making, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Well, the material that the lighter, the gravity stuff.
Oh yes, I never finished
Right,
it. I never
right.
finished
I
it.
just
Okay, never
wanted to
finished it.
clarify
It
what it was
reduces
we were
the
talking
speed of
about.
light.
Clarification.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
I was asking about both, but
Yeah, okay,
let's
but okay,
differentiate 'em.
yeah, I didn't finish it. Let me get back on that track. So the point is this: the same mechanism you need to make the speed of light small is the same for the mechanism that I'm talking about.
The same thing that's in the microtubules, essentially,
Well,
analogous.
no, well, I'm saying this is the same basic effect. In order to get this, in order to generate consciousness, you need the matter to back react on the quantum information waves. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Fine.
And in order to do that, you need the Fourier mechanism, because it's only when you have this Fourier coherence state, it's like phase transition to what's called an active matter coherent state, that will create the back reaction. So what I'm saying, okay, so what I'm claiming is
Well,
that,
you're not claiming, you're just.
no, well, I'm saying what the equations suggest, if I'm right, because it's all wrong. Anything like that tic tac that's flying by what Hal Puthoff calls metric engineering, but it's changing, the gravitational field around it. So it's just like, it's freely falling. There's zero gravity inside the ship, See, it's on a geodesic. It's like when you fall off a ladder, Einstein, you fall off a ladder, you're weightless. So everything's weightless inside the ship. They have to wear magnetic boots or something to keep from floating. Even though the ship is going at, let's say, Mach 5, and it suddenly does that,
Right.
there are no G-forces. It looks like there are G-forces that would destroy the ship,
And
but it
that's
doesn't, because inside the
There's
ship,
no gravity
it's
anyway.
zero. There's zero.
Okay, so you have this skin.
What?
You have this skin. You have the
Yeah, the skin
outer
is
hull.
generating that field. That's one of the, and it's a near field. It's just a little boundary layer field, okay, and it's low power. Because if you compute how much, if the speed of light were what it is in vacuum, 186,000 miles a second, and if you want to compute how much energy density you need to make a gravitational field like here on the surface of the Earth, it's like 10,000 times or 1,000 times the explosive yield of the most powerful nuclear fusion bomb we have. Okay, so it would just destroy the Earth. See what I mean?
Are you on
It's
my-
got to be what
are
I'm
you on my
talking about.
computer?
But-
Is she on my computer?
And,
No, on mine.
no,
Oh,
that's
okay, brilliant. All right.
And so the thing is that they may be operating this thing with a 3-volt battery. I mean, with a AAA battery. You know, I mean that's how. You know,
Wouldn't that be cool?
yeah. In principle, it's conceivable.
So what do you guys think when he talks like this?
I am.
What do you
laughing.
reckon?
I think it's
Listen,
interesting.
I'm telling you.
No,
this-
no, Jack, you need to listen to
Yeah.
something.
We didn't come to talk, we came to listen.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Is
No, I get
nobody
that.
else on
Captured
the planet
everything
knows
thus
this stuff.
I know.
This is, and
And eat guacamole.
oh yeah, this is good.
Yeah, so
It's good, it's fresh. You know where it's from?
Very good.
Jack?
I wrote down a quote from your article, and I think you're touching on it, but I just want to expound on. Consciousness is non-local and analogous to curvature, right? So I think what you're saying is consciousness affecting.
Did I say with non-local?
No, forget that part. Analogous to curvature, that's what.
Yeah. Okay. But okay. No wait. But let me say anything about that.
So curvature in general relativity.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, is equal to consciousness in this.
Yeah.
Mangiare. Allora, vabbè.
I think that's like incredibly deep.
Yeah, but let me just say one other point. It's a technical point. It's not. I mean, non-local is okay, but it's not really non-local. To be more accurate, it's locally retrocausal.
Yeah.
Okay. No wait. But let me explain why. Let me explain why.
Yeah, okay.
You see, the problem with non-locality is that it violates Einstein's theory of relativity. This has been a big problem. It seems to violate Einstein's
Well,
theory
it
of relativity.
seems,
Seems
Jack.
on my team. Okay.
Jack,
Okay,
it
wait.
seems.
Yeah. Now, there's this thing that there was this French physicist named Costa de Beauregard back. In fact, I knew him. And 50 years ago, when we were first starting out all this, he actually understood this, but people didn't pay attention to him, including me. I didn't pay enough attention to him. He was part of he went to SRI, knew how to put off all that stuff from Paris. I actually visited in Paris at the Henri Poincaré Institute back then. And he said, you know, with the EPR effect, it looks as though if you tweak something here, it instantly affects what's over there. And that would, it seems like it's faster than light. But I think that's faster than light kind of violates relativity, right? But what Costa Beauregard said, it's not really fast than light. What's happening is that the information, okay, you have something back here, say an atom is splits into 2 pieces, okay? Then you do something here and that one feels it there. Because what's happening, the information, what you've done here, travels back in time to the creation and then up there. And
So there's no violation.
So what,
There's no violation.
What do you think?
Okay, but wait, forget what they
Is
think.
that local retrocausality?
That's
or-
local local retrocausality will explain apparent non-locality. See what I mean? It doesn't say it doesn't. So you can't have it. Does it's effectively faster than light, but because of that, it's called the Costa de Beauregard zigzag. So what yeah, and
Do you know what that is?
That's a great name, though.
yeah. Well, that's, okay, now there's a guy. There's a guy
That's
who I know at Trinity College, Cambridge. You know,
Careful, careful.
Trinity College, Cambridge.
You're talking about England
Huey
now,
Price.
aren't
Huey
you?
Price. Listen, Huey Price. Huey Price is the Bertrand Russell Professor of Philosophy of Science at Trinity College, Cambridge, where Hawking was by Martin Rees. I've stayed there. I've actually stayed with Tina.
Yeah, I think you're going right.
And Huey Price, the last 3 or 4 years, has written a series of papers in which he really argues this is the best way to look at them. Yeah. So, and also, see, but non-locality also local retrocausality also explains how you receive messages from the future. Because you get, information is really traveling backward in time, but it's only in the post-quantum realm when you have this action-reaction I'm talking about. It's only then that you can actually decode the messages. See, there's this thing called no signaling. In ordinary quantum mechanics, you cannot use the entangled connection between particles to actually, say Alice to send the message to Bob. He won't see, all he'll see is randomness. only if Alice sends another signal, a secondary classical signal, to Bob, can he then decode. See, you could put a message in the pattern of entanglement. Okay, you can do that. They do that all the time. Okay, but in order to unlock it, you need, it's like that's what cryptography is all about. The quantum cryptography. You need a key to unlock the message. That key is a secondary signal. But with the action reaction, you don't need the key anymore.
Action reaction. What's
Well,
the difference?
Well, with this
Do you know
post-quantum,
that
it's general,
Wait.
when you pump the mechanism, when you put this Froelich thing, when you get above threshold, then Alice can send a message to Bob where he receives the message locally. It's a non-random signal. He actually gets the message. That accounts for precognition. So you can't get precognition. In other words, a future state of the brain can send the message backward in time to a past state of the brain. But if it was just quantum mechanics, you wouldn't know it. It would just be like random static noise. It's only when you have this post-quantum mechanical thing happening that you get a message.
What do you mean by post-quantum mechanics?
Good, brilliant.
I mean that's when the act. That's
You've
when
been very quiet
that's,
in this
that's
conversation.
That's
Like-
when the matter, the material, back reacts.
What do you mean by back reacts?
It's a back react, action react, action reactor. Nothing. If A operates on B, then B must react back on A. That's like a,
Are you talking about Newton's second law of motion?
well, that'll be the third law. The third law is an example of a more general principle. It's a philosophical. Einstein used it in general relativity. The difference between general relativity and special relativity is two things. In special relativity, space-time continuum, space-time is a rigid thing. In John Mueller's, space-time tells matter how to move, but matter does not back react on space-time, so that's an approximation.
Okay.
What Einstein showed was that,
That's the point, Jack.
what Einstein showed was that when you get to generate a real gravitational field, you have to have this back reaction of matter on space-time. It goes from G over C to the fourth. That's what I was talking about before. Okay. Quantum mechanics is a similar situation. In quantum mechanics, in the Bohmian, what's called the Bohm pilot wave formulation, the quantum waves change the classical motion of the material, but the material does not back react on the quantum waves. Only when you have this Froelich mechanism that I've been talking about, only when you get above a certain threshold, power input threshold, does the back reaction emerge. And in that case, see, the quantum waves are mental waves. They're intrinsically mental waves. That's the big thing. Thought waves, the thought waves,
Why
quantum,
do you think that?
because that explains everything. I think because that explains how our consciousness. Why do I think? Probably I'm not the only one to think that. Niels Bohr thought that back at the very beginning. But then, Sir James Jean said, the universe is looking more and more like a great thought than a great machine. People have always, and if you read David Bohm's textbook on quantum theory back that he wrote at Princeton with Einstein, there's a whole chapter on the analogies between quantum waves and thought processes in psychology. Okay, so the point is that's why I'm a genius. Because, and other people aren't.
So what is a Froelich wave?
What?
Or what is a Froelich effect?
No, not a Froelich when you're confused. No.
Right, did you just
Oh,
say you're a
pilot.
genius?
Yes.
Right. I
Can I
understand
just
that.
smack
but
you
what
with
is
a
a
head because I know
Froelich-
you?
Because it's true,
Familia.
it's true.
But what is a Froelich effect? What is,
The
what is
Froelich effect is the Froelich effect is when you're pumping energy into a system and you get it into this
Just sit
coherent
back and
state,
relax.
I am.
then it generates
Maybe I'll just stay here.
back reaction
Are you
of the matter on that
He's
wave, on
family.
the coherent Bohm pilot wave. The Froelich pump, when it reaches above a critical power threshold, generates a coherent thought wave in which the matter is reacting back on that thought wave. But what does that matter? That matter is like could be the nerve signal, the classical. I mean, what a nerve impulses are classical electromagnetic near field signals. So those classical signals are then transduced down to microtubular level, and they're causing a change in the mental wave, and that change is our consciousness. That's what we're experiencing.
So-
It's like a voltage difference, right? You know,
So wait a minute.
it's the
There's
difference.
a-
That's consciousness.
There's a change in a mental wave that's coherent, and that causes consciousness?
That is consciousness.
Okay.
That is consciousness. That's what it is. What's happening now? I'm hearing you talk, and I'm seeing you talk. Those are classical sound waves coming off, right? And it's
Okay.
being processed, and it's going to happen very fast. And I have this. My mind is this giant coherent quantum wave. It's the mind. The mind is that. There's no difference. That's what it is. In other words, the universe consists of thought-like things, mental fields, and material fields. They interact. Okay. So those classical signals, those sound, the classical sound waves, they're going in and it's being processed and it's being imprinted. It's changing my mental wave, and that changes what I'm conscious of. Conscious changes, you know, right? I mean, that's not that hard to accept. That's a hypothesis, okay? See, you know.
So you kind of have these bootstrapped levels.
Oh yeah, I mean, then it's gonna be fractals, be all kinds of stuff. But I'm just giving you the basic, you know. So what we experience.
Rudimentary.
In other words, if the mind is just, if nothing's happening to the mind, there's no consciousness. It's only because the mind's getting information that's being mapped from those classical signals, environmental information's coming in the form of classical signals, which is then causing the coherent mental field to change. It's got to be coherent, because how come the body was all these, you know, trillions and trillions of little atomic and molecular things going on? How's it all synchronized? That's coherence. What does it mean when you die? The coherence deteriorates.
No.
So
Let's say
a computer also has a whole bunch of things going on. Does that mean it is also coherent?
No, because it's a classical machine. There's no quantum waves there. There are no coherent quantum waves. Quantum computer, yeah, different.
So we
But
need
if a post-quantum computer will be
listen.
conscious.
so we needed quantum mechanics to describe the semiconductor physics,
Yeah, but
which
that's
is what lets
Yeah, but there's
computers
no,
happen.
you can make a semiconductor, and if you pump it right, in this front mechanism, it will become conscious. But that's not the way our present computers are. You have little micro quantum waves, but they're not coherent. That's superconductivity. In other words, the quantum mechanics is happening on, you know, a scale of atomic scale, molecular scale, nanometer scale. That's it. It's not happening over meters.
Thank you.
It's not happening over the whole body.
Okay.
This the whole reason that we're alive,
Jack.
that I'm a unified mechanism, because this
If your
whole
balls
thing is
is
being
there.
held, being glued together
Oh, I'm gonna
by a
have to leave at
coherent
6, but
quantum
we're gonna
wave.
talk-
Coherent in what respect?
What?
Coherent in what respect?
Quantum.
Quantum, this says what the equations define coherence. It's all mathematics.
It's the phase of the waves, right?
Yeah,
If they're
coherent
in
phase of the
phase, then it's, or
It's
phase.
what's called coherent. It's called an order. I mean, you know, technically it's all precise.
Okay, so I'm
I
thinking
mean, you don't
about
have the
No,
concepts.
Jack, listen, Jack.
Yeah, go ahead. Listen.
Hello,
thinking about
This is where I get to be a child and trying to like snap out of it.
the inside versus the outside, and the state of the inside versus the state of the outside. So I'm thinking about
I thought you were being the parent.
the ATP
I think
that are pumping the microtubules. Then I'm thinking about strange states and high strangeness times.
Tina does the
Um,
same thing.
Well,
That
Have you met
seems
Tina?
like a function of the environment as opposed to the function of what's inside you.
Thank you.
But in which zone does this operate? Like, okay, high strangeness. What do you think it might be?
Oh, the high strangeness. Oh, yeah, but
Right. Was it a change in your nutritive system inside you?
No,
or
no,
was
no.
it something happening?
Oh, you mean
more
how they
broad
do it?
scale?
I don't know. All I know is we're dealing with future. We're dealing with advanced intelligence that exists
What does
in our
that mean,
future.
Jack?
What?
All right, love.
No, I'm talking about. It's not ET.
You and I have had this conversation.
Yeah.
What
We're
does
talking-
that mean?
We're talking about an advanced intelligence which is going to evolve because of what we're doing now. Okay, do you ever see the Star
That's
Trek
just
5?
common sense.
Star Trek 5?
Jack, that's
Did-
common sense.
No, no. It's
Or
not-
I might have seen it, but I'm not sure.
No, what you said. Star Trek 5 is the movie. By the way, I was in the movie. Paramount had me, they had me lecture on all this stuff. I didn't have it, not exactly what I'm talking about now, but similar stuff back about 10 years ago. If you get the director's cut on the CD of Star Trek 5,
He's
it's
in
an
the
hour
movie.
of me
He's in
talking
the
about
movie.
this kind of
Whatever.
stuff.
And I designed Madonna's boob job thing
No.
of
But no,
Really?
in that,
Is
in
that
the plot of that movie, is that they have to, that the Starship Enterprise has to go back to San Francisco in the 60s.
now we're connecting.
Okay.
Now we're
And that's
talking.
when they saved the whales, was that
They
it?
saved the
I
whale.
thought that was Star
They
Trek.
shot it in North Beach when I was
that
in
was Star
North
Trek
Beach. They
four.
shot
That was
it.
Star Trek 4. That was Star Trek
That's a
4.
four,
Star Trek
Star Trek
five
4,
was
yes.
the,
And
That
then
was
the
what
guy,
they
the
got me
rocket
with the fucking
scientist, is
Starship.
building the
I like
rocket,
it.
the first warp drive. That's me.
Oh.
That's where
Now he's showing off.
that's where
Oh.
Scotty picks up the mouse and he says, "Oh, computer."
yeah.
Yeah.
You tried to talk into the
Right,
mouse.
right. So that's kind of that's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's the basic
Get
picture.
it?
That's consistent with that's what I think is happening.
Okay.
That's what that Tic Tac is. They're coming back because they have to come back. It's what's called Igor Novikov is a Moscow physicist. Works with Kip Thorne, who's got the Nobel Prize for gravity wave, black holes, and Novikov calls it a globally consistent loop in time.
It is, but that's live.
Yeah.
But bottom line,
Well, most but
I
most
mean,
but most intellectuals.
Jagdish should be here right now.
Yeah,
Have
but-
you met Jagdish?
But you have to understand, this is heresy to most people. People like Richard Dawkins, the so-called materialist skeptics of the psychic, what do they call it, the Committee to Investigate Claims of the Paranormal, they don't accept that information goes back from the future.
So that's Maya Angelou, who's a friend, and
Yeah, but she doesn't count because she's a poet. I'm talking about science.
no.
She doesn't count. The poets have known this.
Okay, so
That
and
doesn't- that
Jagdish.
carries
All
no
right, so
weight.
we have a friend, Jagdish. All right, I'm going to bring it down for a
Yeah.
second. 1 second.
Yeah.
Jagdish, how important is he in your life?
Yeah, but he doesn't. Yeah, but he doesn't understand. Yeah, he understands.
No, he doesn't understand,
Yeah.
but he's important in one's life.
Yeah,
that's
so
my
what?
point.
No, but
All
that's
right?
so what I'm doing. I'm saying that's true, but
Yeah.
But but
He's
but I want to get back to what you were saying though. You were asking me. So I'm saying we are being contacted from the future all the time.
Okay, but are there times when we're more or less receptive to it?
Now what?
Are there times when we're more or less receptive to it?
Yeah, I think so. But recently, we used to call it in North Beach, Kim Verfano. We call it a synchronicity storm.
Uh-huh.
So now we have the storm. It's come back. It was dormant for quite a while, and now the last 2 or 3 years. And now with this Tic Tac thing, I mean, come on, that's
Uh-huh.
like right on schedule. I mean,
What is the Tic Tac thing?
That's the Nimitz. That's the
Nimitz.
Navy.
Oh,
And the,
right.
the thing they saw looked like a Tic Tac.
Yeah, like I said, it's
It
flying.
wasn't aerodynamic.
I guess
it
I
was
haven't
like
been
a
reading about that.
square.
So could it be analogous to solar storms changing the condition of the ionosphere and?
I wouldn't say that. No, we're talking about intelligence.
Well, yeah, understood. But it's like similar in that a change somewhere kind of predisposes.
No, these
the
guys, no.
environment.
These ships, they're actually coming. They're actually it's time travel. They're coming back through wormholes. It's time. It's like stargates.
Mhm.
All that stuff. All that science fiction stuff is really true. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Basically, it's true. The reason the science fiction is there is because they've been planting these ideas in us, so it'll be familiar. They're all familiar ideas because of all the science fiction. See? In fact, I'll tell you this. What's the Garden of Eden? Garden of Eden is based on a real thing. What happened was the time travelers in the future came back. They took primitive apes, did a little bit of genetic engineering on them. Suddenly, there's discontinuous changes in evolution, right? Suddenly we have consciousness. We didn't have it before. Well, at least not. Oh, then we have language, and so there are these discontinuous. That's all coming from the future. It's all
So it's
interference.
Space Odyssey, basically.
Yeah, that's what Jesus Christ is. That's what all the Buddha, Muhammad, even Muhammad allegedly went up into a ship. If you read the Quran, they talk about that. And the Star of Bethlehem, all that stuff. So it can all be explained just scientifically. See?
How would you define?
Immaculate Conception. Let's see about the Immaculate Conception. Come on, it's genetic engineering.
He's too smart for his own good.
Yeah.
You're
Actually,
talking about consciousness. Could you give us a very direct definition?
I just did it. I said 20 times. Consciousness is the back reaction of matter on its quantum coherent information. That's consciousness.
And then what is
That's qualia.
what is intelligence?
Well, intelligence is
Good
not
question.
consciousness. You can have she is artificial intelligent machine. Siri is intelligent, sort of,
It's stupid.
It's stupid.
I
But
will,
it
I
has
will
something
agree
to-
with that.
But it's not conscious.
I see. So,
So-
intelligence basically is being able to solve problems.
Yeah, the
or
Tesla,
figure things out.
that programs, everything you guys are working on, the Tesla self-driving, that car is intelligent, but it's not a conscious car.
I see.
Conscious cars will
But-
come.
I don't
That's
want.
That's what Elon Musk should be. Conscious cars will come.
Hey, but philosophically, do we want conscious machines?
Hey, you know what? Doesn't
I'm
matter what you want.
intimidated
It's
by
coming
that.
anyway, baby. Whether you want it or not.
No, it
it's
will.
Too late.
It will.
It's
It'll
too late.
come. It will
You know what I'm
come.
saying? It's
Trust
too
me.
late. They want to say, do we
In
want
my
nuclear
world, in my
bombs?
life,
They're here.
it
Do you
will
want
come.
electricity? That goes back to, do you want fire? Back in the cave, do you want
There
fire?
you go.
You burned yourself. No, we shouldn't have
There
any
you go.
fire. It's
It will,
happening.
it will come
So,
whether one
you know,
wants
it's
it or
adapt-
not.
You gotta deal with it. It's happening.
So is consciousness sort of a
Eat,
conversation
mangiare,
with the future?
mangiare,
No, conscious is simply what I said was.
mangiare.
Conscious is simply a simple physical phenomenon,
And that makes sense.
like gravity.
Okay.
Consciousness happens all over the place if the conditions are right. It's an emergent phenomenon, not mysterious.
Well, you're saying where it comes from, but what
I'm
is
saying,
it?
I
What
understand where
is
it comes
the-
from. I'm saying, I'm giving the
It's
equation.
live. It's live.
No, it's a live ego. So I'm giving it, I'm saying, consciousness is no more difficult to understand than gravity is. If you understand general relativity, you'll understand gravity. If you understand post-quantum mechanics and know the mathematics, you can't do it without the mathematics. If you understand at the proper level, you'll understand consciousness.
So
I'm
is
not
there
saying
a-
you can understand it now because you don't, you have to, you're not a physicist. But if you had to,
Don't be a smart aleck.
no, it's the truth.
That's okay.
It's the truth. I can't play the piano like Byron
Chopin.
Janis can.
Chopin or...
You know, I can't play Chopin like that. I have to go through years of training to do that. I have to have talent.
Which you do.
Someone, most people will never understand what I'm saying. But they'll
No,
never
I
understand
do.
what
I
is.
get it, and that's
Well,
why I
okay,
love
they'll
you.
never understand it
From the
at
heart
the-
of my bottom.
They'll never understand
And
it.
Tina and...
Yeah.
You
Now
know
they'll
that.
never understand to the point where they can actually, build a machine from, to actually. They can understand some of it, sure.
No, I can't understand any of it. I work in fashion. I am completely devoid.
So we
of it.
won't have
That's
what
the
we
way
had
life
in
is.
the
But-
movie Short Circuit.
What?
Short Circuit, the movie,
Let me see.
came out in the, I think, 80s, early 80s, where some little robot that was used by the military to shoot things down
Oh, became
somehow
conscious?
zapped and escaped and ended up with a hippie girl. And there's this whole story about how
Yeah.
it
Well, there's-
decided it was alive. And,
Yeah. Well, no, that's,
idea
yeah,
of
but that's, we could build a machine that is conscious, but a machine, a classical computer itself will never become conscious, unless it's specially designed to do so.
I see.
We could take the internet and put it together, like,
He's
it's
genius.
it could be super
Not
artificial
enough,
intelligence,
but
but it won't
he's-
be conscious unless we
One of his
make it.
family
So
is
you're
genius.
right, you could not.
Right.
It
Well,
was
there
make
you
it.
go. We could just choose not to.
No, we're not gonna choose not to, because already, I'll tell you, the Russians are trying, they're all trying to do it.
Oh, Jack, get off
The
the bloody
Iranians.
Russians.
The Iranians, I know for a fact there's over 300 Iranians
Well, you're connected to a
What?
number of different...
monitoring everything I'm doing, I put on the internet. This I know for a fact. In the last 3 years, it's like 300, over 300.
Well,
You just go on LinkedIn, I can show you my contacts and you see, Sharif, this university, that. Physics students.
so what's
He's
the
connected
take
to
on the
the
simulation
FBI and all
hypothesis?
that,
That we're all
CIA
just
and all that
this
rubbish.
is
It's
all
possible.
simulation.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what-
possible, it's possible, the hologram, it's just kind of hologram.
Yeah, right.
If the world's a hologram.
This building is iron.
So what I'm
iron
hearing is
sealed.
that
Does that make sense?
consciousness comes from physical rather than physical coming from consciousness?
Yes,
I see.
conscious is an emergent phenomenon.
From the physical.
From everything is, I'm a physicist, everything's physical. I have no reason,
You're the...
I have no need, what did they
Are you
say?
enjoying this
I have
or
no
not?
need of the
It's
hypothesis
always-
that there's anything non-physical. Everything you think is not physical, it's simply because you don't know enough physics.
So
I know
how much
shit.
How much,
I
how
buy
much
art.
physics and how long of an education would it take
What?
to get there? Are we talking about an undergraduate degree or are we talking about a PhD?
No, yeah, good undergraduate.
Jack, listen.
Yeah,
good
even
undergraduate
if you're-
student.
Even if, like, nobody's teaching it.
Right,
I'm the only one doing it, basically.
right.
But
Jack,
it could be-
listen,
yeah,
he's
no, about a
asking
year
you
or
for
two.
help.
No, I mean, you could study it yourself. I mean, just start reading my stuff.
Right. I'm just wondering how big the barrier is between the stupids and the people who could actually get it.
If you could understand just go on Wikipedia and start reading about Bohmian mechanics, Bohmian quantum theory. You have to understand the Bohm picture, otherwise you'll never get it.
It's the pilot wave thing.
Yeah.
Do you know
See,
about that?
No.
And everything they teach in college, they don't teach Bohm. They're only in very few places. Where are they teaching Bohm? In Tehran, right?
Mm.
No, but it's coming
Wait,
back.
I lived in Tehran. My father worked with the Shah of
Yeah,
Iran.
well, they
You
weren't
know
doing
that.
Bohm then. I don't
You
think
know
they
that.
were.
It's coming back though. My friend
It's coming
Julius
back,
knows some people are saying pilot wave's coming back.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's coming back, yeah.
So,
It's being done in a few,
People
but I've been
at
pushing
Stanford
pilot
are-
waves
are-
for 30 years.
Yeah.
Right?
What's the
slowly,
pilot wave?
it's coming back slowly.
It's coming back, yeah, because it's actually makes the most sense. There's
Yeah,
all this
yeah,
mumbo, all this kind of confused, muddled thinking, and even Penrose himself is not a Bohmian. He's gone off the deep end because he doesn't use Bohm. He knew Bohm, he worked with Bohm.
Mm.
I was thinking about, yeah, but he did. But the problem is when Penrose was with Bohm, Bohm was not
Here we
doing
go.
Bohm.
Mm.
Bohm had been so cowed by all the reaction against his point of
He gave
view.
up.
He gave up basically. He was doing it. He went to Krishnamurti. He became kind of an airhead at the end. People
I'm
go
glad
on and
Tina's
get
not here
mad.
right now. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Family member.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
play.
Yeah, but you know, but it's. the
So
young
did you
Bohm.
answer his question?
Oh, that's
I-
why there's
I
a
think,
young
I don't
brother in
know,
North
right?
Pole.
I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. No, you can obviously learn it.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
Was Bohm in agreement with realism?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just ontological. It's called ontological. But the point is, Bohm had, Bohm was a very smart guy.
Yes, he's
He-
very smart. Very
But
bright.
but Bohm kind of, he never crossed the River Jordan. He was like, he never got to where I am.
no.
So what's the
no,
pilot
you
wave?
got
What?
no.
What's the pilot wave?
It's the wave function, quantum wave function.
Okay.
It's pilot, but it's a physical field that changes matter. See, in ordinary quantum mechanics, they have pilot waves, but they have no matter. And that's why you need collapse to generate matter. It's all this bullshit. That's why you need.
Okay.
They have the reality. How do you get classical reality from ordinary quantum mechanics? It's a problem. It's called the reality problem. But in Bohm theory, it's trivial. There's no problem anymore.
Okay. So it would simplify because Hameroff is
Now,
in the
let me tell you.
classical
Now, Hameroff doesn't understand physics.
Right.
Okay. Hameroff, he's a doctor. He's not a
Yeah.
physicist.
he's a
Guy.
yeah.
Hameroff has had one brilliant observation, and he's correct. The microtubules are seat of consciousness. He's correct about that. The details, how it works, he doesn't know shit from Shinola. So
Right.
to say.
Be nice.
And he's leaning on Penrose, is a very smart man.
Smack it over
But they're using the other.
They're using the Borean, they're using the
The Borean,
collapse picture,
okay.
and that's why it's not going to work.
Right.
So they're not using the Bohemian picture?
No.
No,
Oh, wow.
theirs
Okay,
relies
I
on
didn't realize that.
collapse,
Collapse,
and constantly
gravitational
going
collapse.
back and forth.
Now the one thing in I should say in Penrose's favor, he does claim to have some experiments. You can see if it happens or not. But even if they see a collapse, that doesn't explain what the how does consciousness come from collapse? It's like a mystery. Unless you say what I'm saying, that the waves are mental fields, and then you can explain it. And they don't say that. At least they're not clear about that. There's a lot of confused, muddled things. I mean, most physicists are even smart ones, the best ones. Even though they're good technically, they know how to do experiments, they know how to do calculations, but they don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand what it all means any more than you do. She does, I mean, they go brain dead at that point. And Richard Feynman.
No, or you get surrounded
Feynman-
by Tina and I.
Yeah. No, Richard Feynman was even saying. Richard Feynman even said in minutes, "Hey, listen, nobody understands quantum mechanics." So did Morse, except he was wrong because Bohm did understand quantum mechanics. Bohm understood it.
Did Feynman?
No, I knew Feynman probably. No, well, actually, we don't know. See, I mean, Feynman probably did, but he didn't go public with it. As it turns out, Feynman spent a couple of weeks in the beach of Rio de Janeiro with David Bohm and Jean-Pierre Vigier, who was part of my group for a while. Vigier, back in the 50s when Bohm had to leave the United States because he wouldn't testify for Joe McCarthy. Feynman went down because Feynman knew. They all knew each other. So I think Feynman did know, but he was a bit of a poly. He knew to play the game. Not to say too much. That's what I.
You can say what you want.
Yeah.
You're
And
on
I knew Feynman
Chestnut
personally.
Street.
I spent hours with him. I was a graduate student. I was in La Jolla, I used to go to Caltech. and
Oh,
hang
okay.
out with him. I had a Jaguar at that point. I had an XK.
Well, the Jag's gone,
The black, yeah.
but you've got a new
Yeah.
car.
And before I used to like
Garage
to ride
up
around with me, the Jag going down Sunset Boulevard, you know, looking at the
Nice.
with women, you know, which it's like 20.
Which he
kids.
loved.
See, this is now I get to pull
Yeah.
the other side of Jag.
I had a black XK 150.
He was a
white leather.
he was a
white
show
leather
off.
and spoke wheels. Yeah, it was a beautiful car from Hollywood Sports Cars.
But you still have a nice in the garage. You
Yeah,
have a
that's
nice.
another- yeah,
you
that's
have
a new
nice
Jag.
more practical.
More practical. But yeah, so I think that's
What's a Beeble?
huh?
What's a Beeble? Your
What's
paper
the matter?
says a
That's the
Beeble.
hidden
Where
variables.
does that come from, Beeble?
Uh,
It's like
that's from
Beeble,
John Bell.
things are Beeble, or,
John Bell. John Bell.
You,
Yeah, I
you
know
have to
John
meet the
Bell.
rest of my
He-
family.
that's his term.
Oh, this is.
That's his
You're
term.
allowed.
Just,
If that's
People
okay.
just mean the matter. Just the classical degrees of freedom. The classical matter.
Makes me think of Beeble.
Which the orthodox quantum mechanics, there were no vehicles. That's why there's the mystery. That's why they need collapse. No vehicles. They threw out half the story.
It's weird to be as old as I am and have this word. Suddenly there's a word that I've never heard in my entire
Oh well,
life.
just go on
Beeble.
Wikipedia. Just do Google.
So that's
That's
a hidden variable.
Except that's another technical. The hidden variable's not hidden. See, that was a mistake. The hidden variable is just, this is the hidden variable. Classical level matter, what we perceive classically, that's the hidden variable. It's not hidden. They should call it the invisible. You know, and there's been a confusion. Bohm himself and some people have been, even Bohm got a little bit confused at that because they thought that the hidden variables were really hidden. You can never see them. They became unobservable. So what the hell is that? So that was used against Bohm. But this guy named Rod Sutherland, he's a guy in Australia, and in the last 10 years or so, he's clarified this whole issue, and he shows exactly how it should work. And the hidden variables are not all hidden. It's simply, if you have to use what's called Lagrangian formalism. You know, in classical mechanics, there are Hamiltonians and Lagrangians, the action principle. When you use the Lagrangian formalism, everything falls into place. You formulate Bohm's pilot wave theory as a Lagrangian, which everybody uses anyway. It's like the Lagrangian that everybody uses. There are these extra degrees of freedom. You add them in, you have action, you have freedom, everything kind of works. That's what I
That's a good Jag.
So it's all
We hear it
precise.
all the
It's
time.
not just philosophy. It's real mathematical theoretical.
And you should be. That was my
Can you
childhood.
explain this idea that
in England.
some of the quantum physics is thought-like?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You don't explain it. That's
You can
it.
actually hide things in
You
there
accept
also.
that. That's called an axiom.
You can tell Jag
Premise,
from completely different parallels.
assumption,
as well. As
hypothesis.
is Tina, and you have
Suppose-
to at some stage.
In physics, a nonsense is called an educated guess. You say, suppose you make a hypothesis. Quantum waves are thought games.
Yeah. Well,
How do you know
the
what
one
does it
over
lead
there
to?
is from Tina's house.
You see where it goes. And
No.
all kinds of stuff come up and you
It
test in the lab and then see if it works.
Tina, most of the time,
That's
Tina
why
likes
it's
to
a nonsense.
giggle and listen to him.
And I'm not the only, by the way, Niels Bohr, they all
But
thought
he's
this,
very-
if you read in what they say, they all saw it as an analogy, at least as an analogy. But it really, it's an identity, it's not an analogy.
We
That's
love
it.
him.
Just make that assumption,
From my heart to my bottom.
see where it leads.
He's part of the family.
That's how science is done. You make an hypothesis,
So they're going
conjecture,
to
call it
Europe for 5
conjecture.
weeks.
What's your connection? What's your thought about Dean Radin?
Oh, good stuff. He does doing great. I know Dean.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's doing
And
experiments that,
Tina will have
yeah,
about 4
consistent
days
with
of
everything.
like, I'm
Yeah,
upset
I
about
met him
it.
at IONS a few months back.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Edgar Mitchell.
Right, Edgar Mitchell,
Oh
that's
my
right. He
God.
was on the Apollo
Oh my God.
That's the
11,
guy who
was
had
it? Or
That, the first, when I arrived at SRI, the first thing Brendan took me was to meet Edgar
Who?
Mitchell.
and was he at IONS?
I hope you meet Tim at some
No, it
point.
wasn't this, he was,
I hope
was,
you
yeah,
meet
well,
him.
Institute of Noetic Science.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yes,
ran,
yes.
they were, his office was
I
across the
caught,
street
no, I
from
caught.
SRI, they were running their program. They were CIA. It's a CIA,
brilliant.
Brendan
Love
Ray,
it.
And
it's a
Edgar
CIA.
Mitchell was?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Was a colonel in
Do
the
you
Air
know where
Force.
Prince Edward Island is?
Yeah, he ran, it was all part of a CIA-funded operation.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
And Defense
No, we
Department.
had a dear friend, David, that was in Prince Edward Island.
Now,
Jack, Uncle Jack.
you've said something that seems to be a little bit different
So
than
there's a
Dean Raven,
castle on the island.
which is Dean Raven
Kinloch
says
Castle.
that
Yeah.
everything
I don't know
starts
anything
with
about the word.
consciousness
That's right.
and
No,
evolves
no,
from there.
that's
You've
right.
said
Absolutely right.
consciousness comes from the material.
Yeah. Dean Radin is not a theoretical physicist at my level.
Right.
He's an experimentalist.
doing?
And I don't even know if he's a physicist. I think he's a
Sorry, well,
psychologist.
Because we could
Yeah, I'm
take
not
a
sure
photo if
his
you want.
background.
No, I
Yeah.
love it. That's all you
What he
should.
does is very good. It's consistent, but that doesn't mean everything he says is right.
Right.
You know, and he's not the only one who says that, but he's wrong about that. He's wrong about that if I'm right, about what I'm saying.
I see.
But everything he's seeing fits what I'm saying. So, I mean, no. And how does he know everything is consciousness? He doesn't know what consciousness is. Well, these guys, they say consciousness this, consciousness that, but they have no definition that is scientific about what consciousness is. I do. It's the back reaction of matter on the polywave. It's a mathematical thing. Test and see where it goes.
So that makes it local, right? It's,
What?
consciousness is local to the,
Well, that's-
it emerges from this interaction. It's not like spread all over the
No,
universe,
but
just
through
floating out
entanglement,
there, right?
though, you know, your mental wave, your mental field can be entangled with my mental field. There's entanglement, and information can flow. From what say we meet, we get entangled.
Entangled, really.
And in
Jack,
that action,
Jack,
Well,
really.
and that's remote viewing. There's all remote viewing.
Jack.
That's all
Well,
remote.
that's
What?
entanglement, right? Remote viewing is your,
Remote viewing,
Entangling,
and all
yeah.
remote viewing is it's post-quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement cannot be used for remote viewing. If quantum mechanics were the final theory of reality, remote viewing would not exist, could not
you just
exist.
get noise.
And also be no consciousness.
Right.
You would not be conscious.
Yeah, a lot of
It's
other.
only because
Like you're saying,
consciousness really involves information being communicated via entanglement, which is local retrocausality stuff. Or
Yeah,
even-
exactly.
It can back from the future, by the way. Two guys, Alice can communicate with Bob in the past because they're going to meet in the future.
All right,
which
Jack.
gets around special
Jack,
relativity.
So that's
No,
when
it's
we have.
consistent
solves
with,
the
it's consistent
problem.
with special relativity.
So Jack, that's when
But
we
it
have.
solves the problem of simultaneity.
Yes.
Yes.
You don't need simultaneity,
Yes, yes,
right? Which we already knew.
yeah.
I mean-
The thing is this,
Right.
under special conditions, Alice and Bob can communicate with what looks like over a faceted line interval. But it's not really faceted
It's
line.
not,
the
because it's
information is
time.
not- yeah,
You're yeah.
yes.
Right.
That's the coast of the Beauregard idea. And by the way, it started with Wheeler and Feynman. Actually, Wheeler and Feynman
Once in Cock-
had that idea for class back in 19. Yeah, there's a pedigree to that idea. It's not just.
Yeah.
Jack, bottom line is though, is I love you, and he does this because he's hard of hearing. I love you, Tina loves you, that's important.
Well, yes, but that's not
Do-
what
do
we're
I-
talking about.
I
I
know,
don't wanna mix-
I'm just
I don't wanna
pulling you
mix
back,
that with-
I'm
with
pulling you
science.
back to Tina and R's level of how we feel about you and how much we care about you.
Okay, well, thanks.
Do you understand? A lot of our bene.
Yeah,
so just like there's an entanglement between particles, there's an entanglement between
Yeah, of course.
consciousnesses,
People, yeah.
and
Yeah,
distance is
That's-
irrelevant.
That's
my
ESP.
point. That's my-
Distance is irrelevant.
Yes, that's of course.
Yes.
That's entanglement. Distance is relevant.
So
as
what's
long
re-
as you don't have what's called decoherence, things happening in between.
So,
Yes.
so Dean Radin is talking about the entanglement of the observer and the observed,
Yes, yes.
and
Dean Rain Dean Rain does not
I
understand
need to go away.
entanglement
No.
at a sufficient level to really say it precisely right. But what he says is okay as far as it goes. Yeah, but he doesn't.
Gotta take off.
Oh, you
drive separately?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can-
Okay.
you take care. Take it.
Bye, Eric.
Unfortunately, I'm going to need to leave as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
getting
you've got to
tired.
leave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm getting tired too.
And Jack will talk till the cows come home. As he
Yeah,
said.
Jack, this
Yeah,
is
no, I
fantastic.
want to get back to one.
If you know anything about longitudinal waves and
Yes, yes.
okay, awesome, cool.
But will you talk with him on that level,
Sure,
though,
sure.
Jack?
Yeah. So who do you work? You working? Who do you work?
Dolby Laboratories.
Oh, you work for Dolby.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know anyone over there?
Well, I did know. Years ago, Marshall Nafee. This before you were. This is back in the '70s and the '80s. Marshall Nafee.
He's 76 years old.
Marshall Nafee ran United Artists Studios, United Artists Theaters. Doug Trumbull worked for him.
Okay.
Doug Trumbull. And I think he owned part of it. He had something. They used he had all the theaters. They used the Dolby. He introduced Dolby in the movie theaters. He died. So yeah, I think he knew Dolby. He worked with Dolby.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we know.
Is Dolby still alive?
No, he died 3 years ago.
Okay, yeah. So Marshall died 10 years ago, but they were all in that business. In fact, Marshall helped create Comcast. Comcast, limited
wow.
media. Yeah, no, but they died billionaires. Yeah, they were smart. Yeah.
It's not important.
Yeah, but I remember talking about that. They introduced the Dolby system in the theaters when it first came out back whenever it came out. Was it 70s, 80s?
Yeah, it was, Star Wars was the first.
Yeah, Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the first movie with Dolby.
Yeah.
So it was Yo and Allen kind of started up.
Yeah, and that was done in the Navy Theater. Here was the Navy Theater, United Artists Theaters.
Good stuff. Well,
Yeah.
great meeting you. It's great
Okay.
meeting you folks as well.
Jack, thank you so much.
Okay, great. Yeah.
It was
okay.
really
Bill
good.
liked it too, Bill.